welcome to The Birth of a New Dimension. My name is Aurora, and I'm coming to you from the beautiful sunny field at the end of my driveway. Even though it is early January, whenever possible, I get outside into the beautiful solar radiation, and I connect directly with the stellar network. And this broadcast and all of my broadcasts are all about the concepts of how to reconnect to the stellar network. This is really, it's the network of stars. It is the origins of our consciousness. All of the little neurological electric impulses that go through the quote-unquote wires of your body. The you that looks out from behind your eyes. The undying, undecaying spin of the electron within the molecules and atoms of your being. All of that, and including the food that you eat and metabolize, that is all light. It's all light, it's consciousness, it's awareness, and it comes from the stellar network, the network of light. Where does light and consciousness and awareness come from? It comes from the stars. And we are part of the stars, we are connected to the stars, and our DNA and the shape that our DNA makes as it dances within the nuclei of our cells is also part of that stellar consciousness, stellar community, stellar. It's like a fabric, because the stars aren't just individuated thinkers; they are like a giant creative community, like a big symphony. And I use that analogy quite a lot because we, as individual humans, are musicians in the cosmic symphony, and stars are like very big, very loud instruments in the big cosmic symphony. And the main focus of this particular recording is the concept of the flying rainbow lasagna as a map to peace. Like a map, like a visual representation of a physical geographic landscape. The flying rainbow lasagna is the physical sculptural form that represents non-duality. And this world, what we are experiencing, this entire cosmos, has been struggling under this challenge of duality. And duality, we understand this as good versus evil, or light versus dark, or awareness versus ignorance, or thing versus thing. And so much of the opposition is programmed into our biological perception, this apparatus of perception. I've spoken about this before, that even the retina of your body works according to understanding contrast, like an area of light that is contrasting with an area of shadow or lack of light. And we're also understanding this duality in terms of matter and energy. And Einstein's lovely equation that puts matter on one side of the equal sign and energy on the other side of the equal sign, putting them in constant dualistic opposition. Understanding that matter is solidified energy, or light that has the privilege of going slower than the speed of light. And that when we look at the world in that way, it's not like dualistic opposition. It is just a sea of energy, but some of that energy is going faster or slower than other areas of that energy. So that is how we get out of or rise above this dualistic perception. And the dualistic perception is limiting. I find it very boring. I'm not here to cast aspersions or, point fingers of criticism and be like, earth religions are boring or these other things are lame. But I will tell you that I'm interested in creativity and not merely in struggling in endless dualistic opposition. Brief pause. So the map to peace, because peace means an end to this dualistic opposition struggle of light versus dark, or matter versus energy, or awareness versus ignorance. And I am not here as an apologist. Oh, P.S., I'm a galactic walk-in, so that means that I came into this body, or I'm not the original inhabitant of this human female form. And in most times and places, my form is formless. My form is abstract. I'm an abstraction, just like a song can be an abstraction. If you think of the song, whatever, let's think Stairway to Heaven. You can play that on the guitar. You can play that on the piano. You can play that as an a cappella vocal arrangement. You can play it on a set of tin cans. The song is an abstraction that can be expressed through various different musical instruments. And so I am an abstraction, and right now I'm being expressed through this particular musical instrument. And the tool that allowed me to do this transformation is the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. So if you don't know what that is, if you're not familiar with it, it is a shape, and I represent it as a sculptural form and also as an animation here in this realm. So you can check it out by going to flyingrainbowlasagna.com, and that's lasagna with an E on the end. And you can check out my artwork and my sculptures there, and you can also check out my YouTube channel, which is Flying Rainbow Lasagna with an E on the end. And there's an animation conception of the Flying Rainbow Lasagna that I created for a international math and art conference. It's very interesting. It's called Bridges, and I attended for several years, briefly. And because, sorry about the wind, I'm out here in the beautiful sunshine. Because it is an international conference, it was necessary for me to find a way to communicate beyond the limitations of verbalized language, this concept of non-duality. So I did it as an animation. And this is the whole idea that your genes can be rearranged, your consciousness can be expanded, and you can enjoy additional degrees of freedom by understanding and embodying this shape. Because what I did was I took the ordinary toroidal energy field of this human body and the ordinary behavior of the genes, and when human DNA is supercoiled, and that means twisted up like into its tightest packaged format and almost on the way to being a chromosome, at a certain point it looks like a bunch of stacked up donuts or tori, or donut torus shapes. And any place where you have a donut torus, you can turn it into a flying rainbow lasagna by vibrating it or oscillating it in a higher dimension. So you can take the genes of this body and you can use the flying rainbow lasagna to superimpose, two superpositions of your genes in reality. And I don't know if you've ever used those like magic eye posters or special magic glasses where you have to almost cross your eyes. You're looking at what looks like an abstract pattern, but when you get your eyesight focused on the right focal plane, everything coalesces into an image. And the superposition of genes is like taking one viewpoint that is, a couple of inches to the left and one viewpoint that is a couple of inches to the right, and superimposing them on one another and achieving that new magic eye, quote unquote, just like the posters, a magic eye viewpoint. It is a higher dimensional viewpoint. And what I did was I took the ordinarily toroidal energy field and the ordinarily supercoiled genes of this body and used the flying rainbow lasagna. That's my invention. It was never done before. It's a big, fun experiment or a jazz improv innovation in the world of genetic sculpture. And so it's my invention. I didn't invent the entire interdimensional language, or let's say not as Aurora, not as this format, but, on a much grander scale. Yes, of course, I invented it and created it along with a much larger presence. Because it's like, take credit for what you have done. But I didn't invent as Aurora this language. I perceived it, and then in that perception, I created a new innovation. And that new innovation is what you can do with the human body. That you don't have to follow the old commands or dictates or patterns of consciousness that were handed down to you by ancestors and by society and by religious training and by cosmology, or the scientific and religious origin story of where consciousness and the planet and reality around you comes from. That you don't have to be limited by that backstory anymore, and you can use this moment as a jumping off point and rearrange your consciousness into an entirely new, unlimited format. You don't have to be tied down to the previously established truths, such as aging and decrepitude and inevitable death. That all of those, aging and decrepitude and death, are evidences or symptoms that your genes aren't doing the right dance, because we were not actually designed to age and become more and more and more decrepit and then finally lose all of our energy and die. That's like so ridiculous. I'm laughing out here like, ha ha ha. No way. No, we were created as like perpetual motion machines. And it is only the degradation of the human genetic code and the degradation of like thought structure that has created the reality or the factual truth of aging and decrepitude and death. Just a brief pause. So our bodies were originally created in a different genetic format, and about 10 or 20,000 years ago, that format was degraded by a set of consciousness invaders that came to this planet. And we are not the first planet that they came to. This is why I say the Flying Rainbow Lasagna is a map for peace, or a visual, sculptural representation of how we can achieve peace. Because there is a cosmic battle that has been going on throughout time and on a vast stage, vast time scale, vast spatial arrangement scale. Earth is not the first planet that was invaded and raped and harmed. So that's the first thing. I don't know if you believe that Earth has been quarantined away because Earth has a terrible infestation or disease that it doesn't want to share with the rest of the cosmos. That's laughable. No, Earth is quarantined away from the rest of the cosmos because the beings that invaded did not want, let's say, an antidote or assistance to be able to arrive here. But the Flying Rainbow Lasagna jumps over the barrier of that quarantine. Like you can imagine a computer or software firewall. And again, I'm not a transhumanist, but I use these analogies because they're things that humans are familiar with in this time and place. There was a firewall that was preventing information from coming into your computer, like you couldn't connect effectively to certain websites and get the information there. Well, the Flying Rainbow Lasagna is a way to circumvent that firewall of consciousness and reconnect to all of that wonderful, nourishing information and structure and ideas, new concepts that emanate from the stellar network. So once again, just reestablishing, we are literally from the stars. And when I say that, I know a lot of people are into aliens and UFO culture, and there's all these UFO conferences and everything like that. And I'm quite a bit disappointed because mostly they focus on clank metal spaceships and aliens that use technology and aliens that would be considered perceivable according to objective materialism, like if they had a physical body that you could weigh or dissect in some way. However, most of these UFO conferences are not prepared to recognize a level of consciousness that might be housed in a very different format. A being whose body might be vibrating at such a different level that you would not perceive it if you were just looking at the material realm using your five senses. That there are beings that exist at the level of plasma, which would be like light, and pure consciousness. And that is the level of the stellar network. It's where, first of all, we derive from. That's where we come from. And when I talk about extraterrestrials, like those are the real extraterrestrials. I say that's how experts do star travel. They don't need a clank metal spaceship. And I'm also drawing a distinction here between, in order to get off the surface of your planet, you should not have to use any form of technology. It should be possible, if you are a wise extraterrestrial or a wise human on Terra, a wise terrestrial, to cultivate yourself to the point where you no longer need physical input, or all of your physical input is derived directly from the stars, meaning you can eat light. You don't have to use plants and chlorophyll, chloroplasts, as intermediaries to catch sunlight or photons and turn it into food that you can then eat. If you can begin to imagine a world where you plug directly into the consciousness of the stellar network, and in so doing receive all of the nutrition that you need in order to keep your body alive. And it's actually even better than eating physical food, because when we eat physical food, we are running our bodies more like a steam engine. You shovel coal into the steam engine, it burns, it combusts, and it belches out steam and makes things happen. That's your food. You eat like hamburgers and french fries, and that's your coal, and it goes into the cauldron of your belly, and it combusts in there. And the kinetic motion of your physical cells of your body are like the motion created through a steam engine, but it's very inefficient. It creates a lot of friction and heat and infrared, light energy that is sent off, as well as awareness and kinetic energy. But it also creates a lot of free radicals, and think of the engine belching out smoke and your body pooping out poop. It creates a lot of waste. And that is not how we were originally designed to move in this world. We were designed to be closer to clean, burning solar engine, just tapping directly into the sun and the stellar network, ingesting all of the thoughts and ideas that we need in order to be well nourished, and not producing byproducts. And when you have achieved, so the idea is you live on the surface of a planet and cultivate yourself to that level, and then you are prepared with your own source of energy, your own microclimate, your own, let's call it like, impulse drive, your own capacity to move through time and space without a clank metal spaceship. And then you are prepared to actually leave the surface of your planet. And if you need to put all of your food into toothpaste tubes and suit up in a spacesuit, wearing some kind of a diaper or something like that to catch your bodily fluids and effluvia as you travel through a pressurized clank, tin can up there, that is not how experts do star travel. And it doesn't matter if they have a very sophisticated clank tin can, because those are definitely in existence. There are space cultures that have found ways to use artificial technology that is very sophisticated, but it's not that sophisticated when you find out what they're actually doing. Imagine if you were like a Yanomami Indian from, the Amazon basin, and you had never really seen industrialized culture, and I suddenly helicoptered down, rappelled down, picked you up out of your peaceful forest dwelling, and brought you to someplace like, Times Square in Manhattan. If you didn't know any of the backstory, you might be unduly impressed, because you might be like, look at all this light. Look at all of this motion. Look at all of these vehicles. Look at everything that is moving here. I'm so impressed by the level of activity. Then if I actually told you and showed you the petroleum refineries, the, digging, the mining, the manufacturing, and all of the residual pollution that has to be produced just to, make a car that runs on gasoline, you would be less impressed. You would say like, wow, that's not a very sophisticated culture at all. You're creating all of this environmental degradation, you're harming yourselves, and this is very wasteful. Well, that is what you would actually feel if you could really see the beings that use clank metal technology. Some of those space races are so sophisticated that they can literally transport an entire planet. Imagine putting a whole planet or a big moon, something like that, under warp drive and being able to transport it around through space and do all sorts of things, all of these unnatural things that you would say, that's so impressive, way more impressive than a donkey pulling a cart, right? But not that impressive when you find out that it actually is technology that runs off of hijacked DNA, off of twisted and distorted consciousness, off of distorting the time field and siphoning off energy in what could only be described as cosmic rape. In the same way that, pedophiles take the energy of an innocent child. They engage it in a sexual act that is totally inappropriate, totally non-consensual, and it takes that energy away from the original source of energy. And your sexuality and your genitals are connected to the stellar network. That is part of where your life force energy comes from. So that's why it's such a special, private, sacred place on your individual body, and it's why that interaction with that area of your body should only be consensual. It is a sacred place. It is a sacred transferring of energy. And distorting that basic act is the basis for this non-loving technology. So it doesn't matter if you think like, look at this benevolent space race flying around in their clank metal spaceship from planet to planet, doing good or whatever. Even if you think they're flying around doing good, the very fact that they're using, technological-based equipment to do so means at somewhere along the line they are not actually doing good, because you should not have to use artifice or anything artificial. If they really were going to fly around from planet to planet doing good, they should do it on wings of pure love. And love being an actual tone. I'm not at my piano, but if I were, I would make a tone of music like this. Because our hearts make a tone of music when we are engaged in the act of unconditional love. And that tone literally lifts you up. It literally carries you on a journey. And our challenge is to learn to cultivate that tone. Here we're in this very distorted time field. So again, don't be too hard on yourselves. If you say, wait, why doesn't the law of attraction work? I'm sending out good stuff. Why am I not a millionaire or a billionaire? It's not because you weren't sending out good stuff or enough or praying hard enough. It's because we live in a totally distorted time field. The dark magic that distorts the time field basically means that one sector of society is being raped and victimized, and energy is taken away from them, and then another sector of society is being falsely elevated. If you could imagine, like Elvis Presley, he really was not a superstar. He was falsely elevated. No, I'm not offending anyone here, and I hope there's not like rampant Elvis fans that will call me up and say, how dare you say that about our rock idol? But just using this as an example, that he came from very humble beginnings. If he had not been artificially elevated through this distortion mechanism, he simply would have been, like a gas station attendant or a retail worker. I'm just using this as an example. But through distortion of the time field, he was created into a type of superstar, like a type of ego-based idol that many other people focused on and even imitated, and remember much more than they would have remembered the simple convenience store clerk. That is just one small example. This is happening on a grand scale. And it happens in both directions, that the dark magic that distorts the time field takes people that do have a lot of talent. Imagine someone who was meant to be like a violin virtuoso, but instead of being elevated to their natural position, they are instead falsely suppressed, and they have to instead work like as a gas station attendant, and their talents and skills are being totally wasted, or a brain surgeon, or whatever they would have been on their trajectory of rising to their natural talent. And some people are falsely suppressed, and this can happen through sexual abuse and through other forms of dark magic, where it's like a spell is cast upon a person, and that spell makes them not able to move their body in the way that they would move their body, speak their words, and think their thoughts, and do all the things that essentially move us through time. When you're moving through time, think about it, you're thinking, you're perceiving, you're speaking, you're seeing, you're moving your body parts. And the spell or magical limitation that is placed on a person is basically saying, you don't get to be who you ordinarily would have been. You don't get to say the things and think the thoughts and have the life experiences that you would have thought and experienced if you hadn't been, let's say, changed on your trajectory or interrupted in the natural flow of your life. So when you look around at Earth's surface human society right now, please understand, when you meet a person that is working in a convenience store, that person might be a suppressed violin virtuoso, and that the people that you see parading on a stage as top 40 radio vocalists are mostly people that have been falsely elevated and that do not have natural musical talent, and that are being auto-tuned, and they don't write their own songs and they don't write their own melodies, and they are pretty much being artificially elevated into their positions. There are people that run hugely successful companies that only have those companies due to distortion of the time field, and there are people that have tried to create wonderful ethical companies with great products that are made of sustainable materials and with the correct ethical approach towards fair trade, bartering and all of that, and their companies don't thrive, and that's because they're being artificially suppressed. Because theoretically the idea is it's a free market economy, and if you make a great product for a great price and make it widely available, it's just about competition, then your product is supposed to rise to the top. But it is not about a level playing field where all of these different products simply compete for supremacy based upon their innate value and, whether they are affordable or not. It's not that world. So just take off the blinders and remove the naivete and understand that some of the very best artists and musicians and healers and visionaries and thinkers in this world right now are laboring in poverty and obscurity because they are being suppressed. And many of the people that you will hear on the top 40 radio or see on the bestseller list or see in museums have been falsely elevated to that level. And what they did in order to achieve their station was they sold access to their most sacred and divine body parts. They said, yes, you can touch my sacred and divine body parts as long as you give me this music gig, or help me with my recording album, or help me get a part in this movie, or help me with my software company, etc., etc. So when we look around, when we are seeing examples of success, mostly we are seeing examples of people who chose to participate in a distortion of the time field. And right now, everything's changing because the Flying Rainbow Lasagna means that we no longer have to live within this quarantine. We no longer have to be separate from the stellar network. And all of this empire of distortion is about to fall, because it is a system of great iniquity that has been held up by, or enabled by, all of these, let's say, like injections of false energy. Just like imagine an economy where you have a business that's totally not a viable business. Let's say it's a business that sells something that nobody wants to buy. It's a storefront, no one ever goes in there, no one is buying from them, but somehow they're still in business. How are they still in business? Well, the answer is it's a front. It's a front for some black market activity, and it's really something else going on behind closed doors that business gets its money from. It's not the actual merchandise that is in the front that has no customers buying it. That's our world. That's the world that you see around us. Our entire world is a front. And the real illicit business that is upholding everything in our world, everything from the economy to our government to social structure and religious structure and banking structure, it is all being upheld by dark magic, or this distortion of the time field. So there are various different space races, and the ones that use technology are participating in the distortion of the time field to some extent, and they have been pooping all over the entire cosmos. What's supposed to happen is there is a pristine cosmos, like a pristine natural world. Think of it like an untrammeled forest. A forest is an ecosystem, and the mold spores and the microbial realm and the fungi and the yeasts are all interactive with the tiny animals, tiny plants, and giant multicellular organisms and giant multicellular plants. I mean, that is the world that we are supposed to be a part of. That microbial life and planetary life and life on the level of the stellar network are all intertwined, entangled on a quantum level, interactive on the level of time and consciousness. Like, what I say to you affects your trajectory through time. We're all affecting each other in time. And it's supposed to be like a beautiful symphony, beautiful musical score, where, we've got these high piccolos playing in the background, and then we've got deep kettle drums rumbling in the distance, and all of the other notes in between. That's supposed to be the symphony of consciousness. But what we have instead are these sour notes that are being played by users of technology. And some of those users of technology even purport to be good. They have a self-image saying, like, we're the good guys and we're here to help you and everything like that. But as I said, if they are using this technology that is not natural, that is artificial, then they are not truly good. They are not truly part of that impeccable symphony of consciousness where if you're part of it, you have all of the energy and all of the freedom that you need. You don't need anything extra. So the only reason why humans use something like right now, I'm using my iPad as a form of technology to record my voice and send these thought structures out to you. If we all had our full higher faculties, spiffed up and polished up, and our bodies were perfectly in tune, we would not require this externalized apparatus to have this conversation. It would be done simply on the telepathic interior apparatus of your being. I would sit here in the sun, sending out these thought forms, and anybody who chose to tune into my frequency would hear me and hear my thoughts and hear my message. And it would also be nice because it would be two-way. I could also hear you thinking back to me, and I could respond. So it would be more like a virtual chat room, okay? But the point is, it's not like I would just be sitting here thinking and no one else could hear me. It would be even better. It would be an upgrade. You definitely would get a technology upgrade if you weren't just using this stupid clank metal technology. And the clank metal technology that I'm speaking into right now, and the wireless network that it's connected to, and the artificial electromagnetic fields that it derives from, all the cell phone towers, all of the unshielded electrons flowing in a wire that create a magnetic field, all of the intentional, like HARP, weather control, all of the radiation that is emitted around the planet right now, along with nanoparticles emitted in aerosol form in the atmosphere, chemtrails, this all acts to reduce consciousness and to block out that natural signal. Literally, the sunlight and starlight is being blocked out, like visually, by the nanoparticles and, clouding up the sky. And it's also affecting the neurology of your body because it's inside of your body. And the fields, like the radiation fields, are thought fields that are antithetical to true thought. And they're making it very hard for each one of us to think our true thoughts and to be a part of the true cosmic symphony and to play the right notes and to play on the beat. So what I do as the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, I am like a Wi-Fi hotspot for the stellar network. The stellar network is having trouble beaming down that level of consciousness and awareness into this level of material reality and reaching Earth's surface human culture. So I am I like to say I'm broadcasting, in the sonic equivalent of all of this beautiful light that is coming into my eye right now, in my inner eye. I am literally sending out all of these waves of consciousness using my voice and the flapping of my moving mouth parts, and also using the vibration of my own DNA. So even if I didn't have a radio show and I didn't have an apparatus to record my voice, I would still be out here emitting my structured thoughts through the antenna of my DNA, and you would be receiving it through your DNA. And all of this is consensual. I'm playing my instrument. I'm here in the cosmic symphony. It wouldn't be right if I was just some, high-up overlord living on a cloud in a comfy place, like doing the backstroke through the cosmos, and I just wave my magic wand and I send down information. I'm like, here, I'm going to have an impact on your realm, and you all have to deal with it. That's not what I am, clearly. I went through very great difficulties in order to come into this physical body, and the basic backstory, if you don't know, the neurology of this body was really harmed and disarranged, and it literally killed the previous occupant. People don't just die of nothing, they die of something. And the previous occupant, the ego that was born in this body and lived here for 27 years until they got killed, and the body had brain damage. And it took a very long time to transform the genes of this body and rewire the neurology in order to compensate for that damage. So it's a miracle every day, not only for me to be here and be alive, but to be using this instrument and to be transforming it. And I transform every day, always reaching a new and higher level. And that's how I do anything. Just letting some of the traffic go by, brief pause, how I am even able to do simple things like articulate with words. The ability to articulate was neurologically damaged. The ability to perceive and understand and to do simple things like understand numbers and do math, those were all destroyed. And in order for me to use those faculties, I had to learn how to jump up and over whatever roadblocks, neurological roadblocks, were in the way, or fold time and space around the damage so that I could do these things. And that's what I did. And I do that in my own body and in my own instrument. And it's like a template or an example for how each one of us can transcend the limitations, can transcend an amputation. You can transcend a literal lack of neurological brain tissue, or the absence of something physical that is supposed to be there. Because the Flying Rainbow Lasagna acts as a higher dimensional, you could call it a placeholder, or a bridge, or an integument. Your integumentary system in your body is like the stuff that holds you together. The Flying Rainbow Lasagna is a higher dimensional, quote-unquote, stuff that holds you together. And that explains my existence here, that if I hadn't been held together by this higher dimensional format after the previous occupant was murdered, through psychic attack, which was really a satanic sacrifice, that this body would have just decomposed and, gone into different pieces. And it took this total unlikelihood. It's a totally unlikely event for a Flying Rainbow Lasagna to spontaneously appear and hold the body together so that it can transform into a new format. And this opportunity to transcend is what we are here for, and that is what Earth is experiencing. So I go back a little bit to the cosmic backstory. Earth is not the first planet to be invaded. Many other planets in our solar system were invaded. What is presently the asteroid belt used to be a planet known as either Marduk or Malduk, depending on whose myths you're looking into, which cultural myths. And it got vibrated out of existence through non-harmonic music. Imagine a band that plays music that is so bad, fighting against each other with music, that it explodes all of their instruments. That's what happened on that planet. And then the people that were responsible for that, the band members, they're like, cool, now we'll go to another planet. We'll destroy another planet. They did it to Venus and they did it to Mars. And then they came to Earth. All right? So we're looking at our solar system as a family that has experienced profound trauma, like rape and murder of other family members that we watched, and then they came for us. And I am here as Aurora, the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, the first one, but not the only one, because we are all transforming into Flying Rainbow Lasagna. Anybody who wishes to, you are all invited to transform. There's a whole Flying Rainbow Lasagna contingency, or we could call it an army, even though I'm trying not to use the words of war to describe what is really a spiritual unfoldment or a spiritual experience. Because we're not just in a dualistic battle, and this is why I call this the map to peace. Because a lot of these sophisticated space races have been fighting each other for eons. And some of them you would say, these are the good guys, these are the bad guys, because they're all users of technology. And there are the ones that say, we are the quote-unquote self-described good guys, but we still use technology. And then there are the ones that say, we are clearly the evil ones and we use technology. And they're fighting each other, and they're endlessly fighting each other in dualistic opposition. Then we have the beings who are the real experts. I like to call this like advanced jazz band. They are the musicians that are so adept, and they are also so giving and sensitive as musicians. Being a good musician doesn't just mean that you are very skilled and you can play pa-pa-pa-pa-pa, like all of the notes in the right order, the way that they're supposed to be on the... It's not just that. Being a good musician also means that you listen to and respond to the other musicians that are playing. And you're not a total diva who's always trying to take the spotlight and sing the loudest in the band. That being a good musician means that sometimes you rest. When you read the notes of the cosmic score, sometimes you play and sometimes you rest. And when you rest, you're attentive to the other players in the band. And even when you're playing, you are attentive to the other players. Am I overwhelming them? Am I complimenting them? How do they respond emotionally to the notes that I send out? These are the experts in jazz band, and these are the beings that are on the stellar network, and these are the beings that I am connected to, and that they're the origins of where I come from. I'm an extraterrestrial. I'm not from this world. I'm not a clank metal technology using extraterrestrial either. Now you need to understand that those metal technology using extraterrestrials, some of them have been going around, just mining or raping planets for resources for a very long time. And some of them are like, we're the good guys and we're going to stop you rapists, but they're not really the good guys because they're also using technology. And it's like, it's good that they're co-opting the technology and they're trying to turn it around and use it towards something that is not destructive, but all it ends up doing is creating a big fat thing versus thing paradigm. And that paradigm, that war, has been played out on the surface of Earth for over 10,000 years. It is in our culture, it's in our myths, it's in our biology. Each one of us is like the battlefield. Your genes and your thoughts and your feelings and your mentality and your trajectory through life, this is all the battle. And the battle is personified in human mythology as angels versus devils. Like, on the right side, you got your angels on your shoulder, and on the left side, you got your devils on your shoulder, and they're all whispering in your ears saying, do something bad, and then the angels say, no, do something good. But those are dualistic opposition. And the real good guys are willing to transcend duality, because when you're constantly struggling in duality, it's like a tug of war that never ends. And this is suffering that never ends. And I am here as the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, and I invented the Flying Rainbow Lasagna to end suffering, not to continue in endless dualistic opposition. Once again, to repeat, I did not create the flying rainbow lasagna so that good and evil could struggle endlessly in duality. I created it to end that struggle and to bring us finally to an era of peace. So the flying rainbow lasagna is a visual map or representation of the peace process of good and evil. And I am not an apologist for evil. I do not say, well, according to moral relativism, it's all good and it's all evil. No, not at all. So I'm doing this pretty clearly because I don't want my work to ever be taken out of context like some philosopher, and then have it be used as the, justification for eugenics or, some kind of crazy shit like that. No. So please don't misunderstand me. I'm not a demonic apologist. I don't ask you to apologize for the behavior of literal demons who do not have their own life force energy and who are not connected to the source and who can only maintain their culture through this, technology, through this distortion of the time field. In fact, I'm not a demonic apologist, and what I have done is create solutions. So the flying rainbow lasagna is one aspect of this solution, and rebooting to love is another aspect. So this is a cosmic computer program that I came up with in 2016. It took a little while for me to think of it. That if there are beings that cannot eat love, like their operating system is not a love-based operating system in their body, in their being. But in my Mac computer, I can run this program that's called Boot Camp. And it means even though my operating system is Mac, I can split my hard drive. And I can have half of my hard drive be Mac and half of my hard drive be Windows. And then, you can choose. You can turn off your computer and you can reboot it either in Mac operating system or in Windows operating system. So let's say evil is like a cosmic operating system. And all of these demonic beings, that's what the operating system that they run with. They literally cannot run programs that are love-based programs. And in order for them to connect to the stellar network, they would have to radically transform their entire operating system. That is the program that I invented, and I call it Reboot to Love, where demons can literally partition their hard drive and reset themselves and reconnect to the cosmos, but now with the capacity to perceive love and to use it as their basic format of energy and consciousness. So no longer is it acceptable to make the excuse, but I was born this way. And, the slavering toothy monster, as it's eating its victim, it's like, I have to eat this because I was born this way and I don't have any other choices. So no longer is there that excuse and justification. Those demonic beings now have the capacity to reboot to love and to eat a different type of food, because what they have been doing is farming humanity and other planets for misery, for a lower, degraded form of emotional energy that is not love. So we were invented and created originally by the original creator to eat nothing but love. And that is like being connected to the stellar network and not requiring any intermediaries. And the distortion and degradation of consciousness occurred because other beings could not eat love. And that happened. This is basic backstory. You can check it out in my Galactic History webinar. That is all about the group of beings that emanated themselves from the source, but not on a bridge of love, as their own choice, as their own art project. They created technology. They never had bodies. They never were born in a womb. They never developed. They were never like a one-celled organism and then a tadpole and then a chimpanzee. They were never in those formats. They only put their energy and awareness and consciousness into like a hard drive or a computer in the physical realm. So they did not learn all of the lessons of love. Like just to come here and be a cellular organism, you have to learn all of these lessons about love. It's the fail-safe mechanism of the cosmos. Just like that mechanism that says if you need a clank metal spaceship to get off the surface of your planet, you're not actually supposed to get off the surface of your planet. Like you're not ready yet. And if you are not ready or willing to learn to format yourself into a physical, organic body and come here and eat love, then you're not ready to be in the physical world. And what we are looking at right now is a world that is the end result of a combination of things and people that are supposed to be in this world and things and people that are totally not supposed to be here. The things and people that are totally not supposed to be here are the things and people that need to be supported by technology because they cannot eat love. And they're like, don't kill me, I need technology to exist, I can't eat love. And it's like, okay, go into the backstory. Why are you in that position? God didn't make you in that way. The Creator did not make you in that way. That you really have to understand the composer or like the great, musician that created this whole symphony is really adept. They are really a good musician. They're not crappy. They think about everything. They're like a really good artist. A really good artist, that's, I would define as a person who, they plan their creative project. They do some innovation, but they also plan, Like, you don't just dive in on an expensive canvas with some expensive pigments and, like, screw it all up and scrape it all down. Do some charcoal drawings first. Figure out your basic composition. Figure it out. Well, you have to understand that to create life, to create this complex interworking, like the ecosystem of organic life, that requires a virtuoso. It requires someone who is really, really good at their job. It does not require so much of a virtuoso to just create like a clank, metal container and come into the physical realm and then create all of this disharmony and kill all of these beautiful physical organisms that are fragile. Because once you start to make their instruments go out of tune, then they no longer get to be part of the symphony of life. So in order to be what we would define as alive, as an organic multicellular being, you have to be conforming to certain patterns, and then you get to be part of the symphony of life. And what happened is these beings that were never alive, they never conformed to the symphony. They got into like cyborg body structures, and they went around putting all of the other instruments that were in perfect tune out of tune. And then those beings could no longer be alive, and then those beings got to be dead, and that is called the invention of death. Death is an aberration. It's not something that's supposed to be in existence. Death is what happens when you are turned from your trajectory of eternal consciousness, or, the ascension timeline of being continually conscious and aware and awake and alive forever. And you get turned to face the membrane of death. And then to hit that interstice or membrane between worlds and get stuck there and have to actually experience that. That is an aberrant situation, or a thing that is not supposed to exist. And so what we have is a system that was created that was supposed to run only on unconditional love as the operating system and only contain life. And instead, there is this infection or infestation of death and the technology-based creatures that create death. And I hope you now understand that this describes your individual life, individual like here as a person in an industrialized culture on Earth's surface. It describes the story of Earth herself as a planet. It describes the struggle of our solar system. It describes the struggle of our whole Milky Way and pretty much our entire cosmos, because that death technology is throughout the cosmos. And the point of all of this, I won't give you such a bleak picture without giving you the solution. We are now poised at that moment, that's what Birth of a New Dimension is, of healing the entire cosmos. Because all of the beings that choose to, that don't have a love-based operating system, can now reboot to love, and all of the ones that should not be here, we can resolve through the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. So I have a few more minutes left, and if you check out a picture of the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, you will see there appear to be two pointy ends, like a top and a bottom, but that's quite arbitrary, because sorry, there's a plane flying by upstairs, something like, we could orient the lasagna side to side, and then we could say there's a pointy side to the left and the right. So that's arbitrary and doesn't matter. But the point is that is the convergence, or what I define as the singularity, but it is not the singularity of, Earth's transhumanist agenda, the culture here. It is the singularity or the source of everything and the destination of everything. And that point when it is vibrated in a higher dimensional space, becomes the pointy thing at one end of the lasagna and the pointy thing at the other end of the lasagna. But we understand it is the same thing vibrating into two different positions. And now we need to understand that when it's in those two different positions, it has different qualities. Just like I'm trying to think of a good analogy in the physical realm, I'm not coming up with anything right now. But when that singularity is vibrated, let's say, to the up position, it is in a state of total energy. That's infinity, where all of the energy exists, and all the timelines and possibilities and probabilities all overlap. And then when it bounces into the opposite direction, it goes to the antithesis of total energy, which is total entropy, total loss of energy. If total energy would be analogous to great heat, like lots and lots of energy, lots and lots of motion, creating lots and lots of heat, that entropy would be total coldness or lack of heat. It would be like 0 degrees Kelvin, or, the absolute zero coldness. It would be molecules that have no energy to actually move. And in science, even though science is not a perfect operating system either, but it does give us a good common vocabulary to talk about these things. In science, when matter is brought down to that state of ultimate coldness, or just a fraction above, it does weird and interesting things, and it creates what's known as a Bose-Einstein condensate. And this is a level of matter that is denser than physical matter. And all of the molecules and atoms start to do weird things, and they start to smear on top of each other, and they achieve unity consciousness. So the flying rainbow lasagna is the map to peace, because we understand that on one end, or at one pole, we have total energy, and at the other end, or at the other pole, we have total entropy. And we do not have to live in a realm where these two seemingly polar opposites are constantly fighting against each other. We can live in a realm where everybody who wants to have lots and lots of energy lives at the pole of lots and lots of energy and travels in that direction, and where everybody who wants to experience lack of energy and lack of awareness gets to live in that realm. There is no conflict. There is no need for this war and this duality. Think about all the space races that are up there using technology to shoot each other, or, shoot lasers at each other, or blow up their space stations, or harm each other in some way, because they're fighting for supremacy, because they're fighting for territory, because they are fighting for resources. Think about all of that oppositional duality being resolved. And all of those beings that want to live in a state of death or coldness or total entropy, they get to have that. They get to have that realm. And this can be hard, because a lot of people on Earth, and a lot of light workers, or a lot of angelic beings who identify with, the good guys, they're like, but wait, I don't want the evil people to still be in existence. I want them to be unmade. I want them to be... This is how it happens. This flying rainbow lasagna is the solution, and it is about reducing suffering. So this is not like, that's why I say not a eugenics solution. It's not like we're taking everybody that we don't like and beheading them. Or I'm going to take everybody that I don't like, I'm going to blow up your planets, I'm going to blow you up. That's not what it is. What it actually is understanding that energy and entropy are both parts of the same continuum of consciousness, or, spectrum of energy. And think about this. If you have a state of total entropy, and you add just a little bit of energy to it, it's no longer totally entropic. It's no longer totally dead and cold and without awareness and light. Those beings that want that death experience, they have to exist in that state of total lack of energy. But if you take energy, like the total infinity, and if you just took away, a little bit of energy from it, you would still have a lot of energy. You would not change it by its basic nature. This is like, just trying to help you to understand the qualities of these two positions are not like interchangeable. It's not, there's symmetry, but it's not necessarily interchangeability, that there are different qualities to these two different levels of energy. It's not about punishment. It's not about saying, oh, evil beings now need to quote unquote go to hell. Hell is actually the interstices. Hell is actually a realm that is supposed to be like a hallway between worlds, and instead people have set up encampments there, and they now live there for thousands of years. And if you want to go through that hallway, you can't just go through a hallway. You got to walk through a tent, and then walk through an encampment, and then walk through a shanty town, and then walk through another shack, and then come out the other side, because people live there, but they're not supposed to live there. This is called clearing out the interstices. This is how we resolve duality. This is how we end the war. So I really hope that you're with me on this journey. This is about being free on every level, that the entire cosmos is going to be free, that also the evil beings are going to be free. Doesn't mean they're going to be free to interact with the world of energy. They will be free within their own totally entropic world, in their own world of unity consciousness. They will have their own freedom. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being with me on the journey. I encourage all of us to continue to dance like flying rainbow lasagnas on an individual level and as a collective and as a planet, and keep on connecting to the stellar network, because that's where we really come from. Thank you.